Are you ready for Hulu Animayhem? Well, get ready, because Hulu Animayhem is your animation destination to watch full seasons and new episodes of your favorite shows like Family Guy, Futurama, Solar Opposites, Hit Monkey, Bob's Burgers, and many, many, many more. So get ready to be bowled over, have your socks knocked off, and get thrown for a loop, all in one convenient streaming location. Hulu Animayhem, your animation destination. Now streaming on Hulu.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous two-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Super Real.
Hey, I'm Julian Morgans, and you're listening to What It Was Like, the show that asks people who have lived through big, dramatic events what it was like.
Hey, it's me. I'm back. Thanks for joining me last week as we presented you an episode of 1 Minute Remaining. But this week, you've got me. So it's been another crazy week here in the modern world. Someone just tried to shoot Donald Trump, and I've just been feeling a bit like, are we on the brink of something? You know, it just seems like there's a lot happening at the moment. There's climate change, Trump, Biden, Gaza, Ukraine, bird flu. Been reading about that. That's bad. Forever chemicals, you know, that's been on my mind the last couple of weeks since I spoke to Chris. And it just feels like there's a lot to worry about. And I guess that's the emotional background to why I wanted to run today's story. This week, I just wanted to believe in miracles, you know? I wanted to believe that sometimes everything just works out, even when the deck is stacked against us. And that's why, today, I'm speaking with a man who logically should have died in a plane crash. His name is George Burk, and in May of 1970, he was a young captain in the US Air Force, and he took off in a military plane from a base in California with 13 other people. And just a few minutes after takeoff, at about 3,000 feet, their plane experienced explosive decompression, and the pilot side of the cockpit blew in, killing the captain, and then large sections of the roof peeled off into the sky as George Burk and 13 others rode this disintegrating plane down to the ground where it exploded in a fireball. And George was the sole survivor. And I wanted to hear this story because, you know, sure, it's full of tragedy and trauma, but it's also, at its core, it's about pulling through. For several decades now, George has been sharing a story about how he barely survived, but how he got through it, and how sometimes everything works out. And I just think that's a good message right now. It gives me sort of a weird faith that everything's going to be all right. So now, to bring you this story, here is Captain George A. Burk.
Hey, George. Welcome to the show.
Good day, mate. Thank you for inviting me.
The pleasure is all mine. So, tell me about where you grew up.
Grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a blue-collar section of Pittsburgh, home of the Steelers. How you doing?
Okay, and what was your childhood like?
Older sister, 7 years older than I. She married when she was 19, so I was home, mom and dad and I, when I was 12 and a half. 5 generations of my family went to the same grade school. 4 generations of the same high school. I was an athlete in high school baseball and basketball. Graduated in 1963. So I joined the Air Force. My brother was a career officer. My family was very career military oriented. So I volunteered through some channels. I volunteered to go to Vietnam.
What was your experience of that?
3 things: the noise, the heat, and the smell. Noise of turbines, jets were in the background. The heat was stifling. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 100 degrees and 90% humidity, I don't know. And the noise was like you just walked into an open sewer. And that's what I remember. And I thought, this is going to be interesting. What have I got myself into?
So take me to the events of 1970.
Okay.
Where were you and what was happening in your life at that time?
I was assigned, I was handpicked out of Vietnam to what was then Hamilton Air Force Base in northeast of Marin County, California. As part of I was a team chief of an air traffic control maintenance standardization evaluation team. So that was my job. I had, I had about 18 months. I had 12 trips. And sometimes we flew like commercial and or we'd come back commercial in places like Grand Forks, North Dakota, Spokane, Washington, wherever. Fast forward, I was on my next to last trip, May 4th, 1970. T-29, bound for Spokane, Washington, and Fairchild Air Force Base.
Just describe to me what a T-29 looks like. Is it a big plane, a small plane?
It's like the old Convair, 2-engine, low-wing, nose-wheel steering commercial airplane back up in the 50s and 60s. It was a passenger airplane.
Yeah, sounds like a passenger plane for sort of domestic flights.
Yeah, so really before the onsets of jet traffic per se. We had tables where we could work and military-type airplane-type seats. Anyway, I left the house. I left the quarters at Hamilton. Ominous.
Ominous?
Ominous because the weather. It would take me only 10 minutes to get the base operation, and it took me almost 20 to 25 minutes because the fog was so thick. I had to follow the white line, and I was crawling like 5 miles an hour.
So you say it was ominous because of the weather, but was it also emotionally ominous? I'm fascinated with this idea that sometimes you hear these stories where a disaster happens and people wake up in the morning literally thinking, something's a bit off today. I mean, did you have any of that sense?
I had of course, no knowledge of what was about to happen. But ominous, surreal, fog, really thick fog. So I ended up at base ops. So we got on the airplane.
What was the mood on the plane that morning?
I guess the best way I describe it is our mood, my mood, and most of the guys in the mood in the airplane was replicated by the weather. Foggy, rainy, damp. It was just the mood was somber because of the weather. Monday morning, imagine going in the morning and having to drive through traffic and have to crawl through traffic, and you finally get there and say, man, I'm all washed out. And one of the ironies, Darrell Robinson was a cap major who I found out later was retiring and had a job with Evergreen Airlines out of Denver International Airport. He was delayed. We didn't know where he was. We waited. There was bench seating, and I sat aisle seat, bulkhead, facing back. And I think Freddie said something about, looks like Robbie's not going to make it. And I saw Pappy closing the door, our crew chief, and with the 3 series of pressure locks. Engine start and started to taxi away from base operations. And all of a sudden, the airplane squealed to stop. And I pushed up, and I looked forward, and I saw Pappy unlocking the 3 pressure locks and deploying the stairs. And I watched Ed Moore unbuckle from his seat, and our flight engineer, Ricky, he was a staff sergeant, Enrique Ferrer, he shoved away from the flight engineer position. And Ed Moore got off the airplane. Robbie got on the airplane, buckled in, door up, pressure locks, pressure, number 2 engine, the right engine started. And I kind of I don't know why, but I leaned forward, and I looked through one of the windows, and I saw Ed Moore disappear into base operations. And last I saw him, and we rolled down, took off. I removed my in-flight. Right after takeoff, the airplane got very bright because of the fog and the sun coming through the clouds and the fog, and it radiated. And I put my Jaiichi sunglasses on, and over the roar of the engines, I told Freddie and Kenny, I yelled at them, let's talk about the trip. We'd been there before. but I want to take a nap. It was a nap morning, right? So I laid across my arms on the table in front of us. I don't know how long I laid there because time becomes provisional existence, I think what psychologists call it, when time collapses like a wormhole. All of a sudden, I hear a crackling sound, and I look up. I quickly look to my right off at Freddie's left shoulder. There was a crack like a spider leg, 3/4 way up. I don't know, it was the inside or outside window. And I think Freddie said something might be going on. And then the next thing I heard was, boom! And it was unlike any noise I'd ever heard. I mean, I've heard, like you, I'm sure, small arms, shotguns, rockets, unlike any noise I'd ever heard before. And as soon as the airplane made that noise, that boom, the airplane decompressed. When that pressure system equalized, the clouds disappeared. The windows were blown out. The airplane was making a loud noise. Brr, brr, brr. The engines were windmilling. I looked to my left, looked to my right. The props were windmilling. Flames were lapping over and under the engine cowling. I unbuckled my seatbelt. I forced myself up from the seat, did a 180-degree turn, grabbed a hold of the structural bulkhead, and we were pitching and yawing and rolling and going down. And I had a great deal of difficulty balancing myself. I took a quick look into the cockpit. I saw Pappy, our crew chief, with the door handle down, trying to keep the door from severing at the fuselage, and I saw from top to bottom a very narrow strip of light. The nose of the airplane was peeled back. The nose was split open. The instrumentation panel was back on my boss's lap. The steering column, think half a steering wheel, okay? It was going back and forth, left to right, only violently. And it was something I heard in the back of the airplane, like an aluminum sound, a metal sound. And people told me years later, it was probably the rudder cables had been severed, because it was rudder cables back then. And I do remember the left side of the cockpit was completely gone, next to Robbie, but I don't consciously remember seeing him decapitated. But I did tell people around me after that I went just reliving, and like somebody vaccinated me with a petroleum needle. I was 45, but I was on 78 speed. I told people around me for a long time that he was decapitated.
This was the pilot
Yes.
that you could see in the cockpit. He'd been decapitated by the implosion.
Something from the inside out of the airplane that broke free, took his head off at his shoulders. And he was late getting into the airplane.
Can I just ask, George?
Yeah.
So you're describing this in a fairly matter-of-fact fashion, and I guess it's because you've told this story a lot of times. But I just want to unpack the psychology of this moment. Like, it's surreal. You're looking around as this airplane disintegrates in midair. I imagine it was really windy. I imagine there was stuff flying around everywhere, that everyone is freaking out. Just give me some of that emotional context here.
I was numb. It was, I didn't really understand what an out-of-body experience was, but I do now. I knew what I was seeing, but my mind took me away and made me numb. That I guess the best way to describe it is the instinct to survive kicked in. I mean, the basic, raw, deep in your soul instinct to survive, but yet knowing when I sat back down in my seat and all this was going on around me, the noise and the wind shear and the airplane was twisting and turning, and that I knew I was dead. I knew I was dead. I knew I wasn't going to survive. And that's when Freddie Adams, I think, said out loud, "Oh my God, we're not going to make it."
Do you remember the ground getting closer as you fell out of the sky?
No. All I saw was fog. Seconds before the airplane decompressed, fog, no blue sky, because it was pretty thick, obviously. And then the decompression and everything that's being destroyed, the airplane breaking up, what I saw in the cockpit, sitting back down in my seat. I buckled my seatbelt again, pulled it as tight as I could. Something had blown free that landed somehow. I got it on my lap. Was a blanket or a cushion. I put it on my lap, and as best I could, but the table kind of blocked me a little bit. I reached over, and as best I could, I clasped my hands together in a survival position, waiting to die.
Did time slow down before you hit the ground?
Yes. Slow down. Wormhole. I mean, I don't know really how much time it was from the collapse to the crash. I've often told people that it was just a minute or two after takeoff. Actually, it was 9 minutes. And we were at 2,900 feet.
That's high.
Yeah. And
in those minutes, or in that period, that wormhole that you're plummeting out of the sky, what did you think about? Well, what sort of filled your head?
I wasn't going to see my family again. I was going to die. It was from the time it decompressed to the time that I felt impact. I don't know how long it was. It could have been a minute. It could have been 30 seconds. I have no way of knowing. But I do know from people that I talked to many years later, they always simulate crashes. And they had people flying in the T-29 that tried to duplicate our flight path and the approximate location where it decompressed and the altitude and where it landed. And to a person, the accident investigation team said, we don't know how Colonel Shelton managed to get it to land where it was because we had no control services. All the ailerons, all the rudders, if you will, the wire-to-wire, they were shredded. They were collapsed.
There's no steering.
Yeah. And that's we landed, we crashed on what turned out to be, I didn't know where it was. But anyway, I remember everything, the impact.
What did the impact feel like?
Like somebody hit me with a 500-pound sledgehammer. I was forward in the survival position, and I was thrust violently backward against the airline type seat. And like a rag doll, when the airplane was hit, and apparently the only thing left was one engine and vertical stabilizer, but they theorized we hit, and the airplane telescoped 3/4 of the way back and turned. And it hit, boom, and then wham. My face hit the table in front of us, ended up breaking my nose. But I had no sensation. I was thinking about blood, but I had no sensation of blood. And I knew I had to get out of the airplane.
You were conscious when, the noise of the impact stopped. Your first thought was, I know how to get out of the plane.
I didn't know how to get out of the airplane because everything was burning. As it turned out, everything was burning. We had 2,500 gallons of aviation fuel on board. Magnesium burns very quickly. Nothing burns quicker as a human body. But and that's where my whole life came in front of me. I mean, my life didn't appear in front of me. But everything that I had ever done in my life, all the things I've done right, all the stomach cramps from training, from pitching, from basketball, from George, clean up your room. George, take out the garbage. Oh, Mom, I got to shovel the snow again. Oh, you got to mow the lawn. You got to study more. I mean, all those things we go through, right? Those innate, very personal, character strengthening, adversity building. When you're taught and you're taught, and your parents teach you, especially a mother in my case, you don't quit. You don't give up. You start something, you finish it. So it's all of those things. My athletic background, my parents, my family, the schoolyard, everything. Getting teased when I was younger. It all adds up, the negative and the positive. Okay, it all comes to focus to that 1 second. That one split nanosecond. I'm sitting in an airplane, and everything's burning around me. When I unbuckle my seatbelt and I stand up, just instinct, the training. And I said to Fred, come on, Fred, let's get the hell out of here. I think he was dead. As I pivoted 3/4 of the out of the airplane, the next sensation I remember feeling was like someone dumping large buckets of scalding hot water on me. It was a flashover from the fire. Then everything went black. Next thing I know, but my height, I'm shorter now. I lost about 2.5 inches off my vertical height. But I'm outside the airplane, probably my distance plus 3 feet, maybe 9, 10 feet from the airplane, face down, and it's repeated. This isn't happening to me. This didn't happen to me. I'm having a bad dream. I'm drunk. I'm hungover. Somebody's probably a nasty trick on me. I tried to pinch myself and I couldn't because my hands were black, especially this one, my left one. I rolled over. My skin was hanging off my right hand, my left hand, especially this one, 2 globs of skin. I looked at my shoes, my black low quarter, and noticed that the laces are tied in my right shoe, but my left shoe's gone. I mean, the laces in my left shoe are gone. It was the mindset. That's weird. So to this day, I still believe I heard somebody crying for help inside the airplane. I rolled back on my stomach. On my elbows and knees, I couldn't lower my hands. And I did a 180-degree turn to the airplane. I saw the skin. The airplane was still burning. The top third basically had burned through. And I crawled to the airplane thinking that I was going to try to help somebody get out of the airplane. And I heard a hissing noise, a muffled explosion, then flash over in my face. And cursing was in vogue then. I gave myself permission to curse. I think I invented some words.
I think that's reasonable.
And then I crawled. I said, remember thinking about, there's nobody alive in this son of a bitch. I better get back where I came from. So I reversed 180 degrees at ankles, knees and elbows, crawling over what turned out to be parts of airplane and pieces of eucalyptus trees. And I started to get up. I said, get on your feet, keep your body functions moving. Instinct, your body training, instinct. Keep your body functions moving, keep the heart moving. You lay here, you're going to die. I don't want to die. I'm not going to die. I got too much to live for. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Get on your feet. Get on your feet, you fat son of a bitch, and walk. Get on your feet. Stand up. So I started to stand up, and I felt a terrible pain, lower part of my left back. And then, oh my God, my back's broken, and I said, well, you dumb SOB. If your back was broken, a lot of self-talk, right? If your back was broken, you wouldn't be able to walk. Well, I turned, and I saw our crew chief, Pappy, about 10 yards away from me, and he was, smoke was coming off his body. He had a dime-sized puncture wound in his cerebellum and was secreting red fluid.
From his head?
Yeah, his brain. And off to my right, at a 2 o'clock position, about 15 yards away, was one of my good friends, an Air Force major by the name of Bob Ward. He's kind of curled up, black, smoke coming off his body. I remember thinking there was somebody alive, and I turned around. I turned around again, standing and looking down at the airplane. We were in kind of a saddle. There was groves of eucalyptus trees, 40 to 60 feet tall, that linked about 30 degrees of this field where we crashed. I was looking down. I didn't know where I was. Still had difficulty believing what I was experiencing. And the top third had burned through. It was still snap, crackle, and pop. Flame. It was hot. And I waved my arms. Hey, anybody alive? Anybody alive? Snap, crackle, pop. Nothing. I saw off to my right, I saw some white-faced Hereford cattle show up. And strange as it may seem, I yelled, hey, can any of you guys give me some help? I really know what what it feels like to be helpless. I felt absolutely helpless. I know what it's like to lose hope. I know what it feels like to know that you're not going to see your wife, your children, your family, and your friends again. No time to say, I'm sorry. Forgive me. Can I have a do-over, God? Please don't let me die. I'm sorry for all the mistakes I made. I love you. Wish I could kiss my wife, kiss my kids, my friends. And I walked around the airplane, it was still burning. And I saw some waist-high prairie grass about 40 yards, as it turned out, about 40 yards from the wreckage. There were 3 small trees in this field. Something instinctively told me, lay down in the grass, curl yourself up, because I was going into shock. I knew I was dying. I felt life leaving me, literally. I laid myself very gingerly down in this waist-high prairie grass, pulled myself up in a prenatal position, and I started praying to God, not let me die in this field all alone, asking for forgiveness. If there's a heaven, I hope I go there. I'm sorry for all the mistakes I made, and I went down a list. And I remember running my good hand through my hair, and I saw white ash appear across my face. And from my neck up, felt like the sensation I was being stung by millions of mosquitoes. But my hands were black, and I just laid there all the while, shaking, trying to, in my mind, trying to hold on with all the energy that I had left. And that was leaving me, grasping to hold on to some element of reality. My reality was not where I was, where I had been. My reality was in that field, burned, broken, and dying. And I didn't know when I was going to draw my last breath, because I was forcing myself. I was exhorting myself. I was calling myself sorts of dirty names. Breathe, you. Breathe. 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 And every time I would say breathe, I would add a pejorative onto it. And as it turned out, I laid there for 40 minutes. I didn't know the time had compressed. Turns out it was 40 minutes. And I heard voices coming up, and I forced myself on my feet a second time. And I turned and went, hey, over here, and fell back down. Literally in a clump. And there was 2 men who turned out to be volunteer firefighters from the Shelbyville, California Volunteer Fire Department, which is right over just Shelbyville, Sonoma, over the ridgeline, Sonoma wine country, right? And I remember looking up at these 2 firefighters who I met years later. What about my face? What about my face? Vanity, right? I'm burned. I'm dying. I'm broken. And I'm worried about my face. Okay? I mean, that's the conditioning we have, right?
That's human.
The one firefighter leaned back on his knees and said, oh, my God. My mind was, you must look like crap. And then I heard a noise, heard a helicopter. The next thing I know, I'm on a gurney, and I'm being lifted into a Coast Guard helicopter. So he had his fatigues on and his red beret. They slid me in, and I said, his name was a staff sergeant, and I said, I don't know what I said. He did all the talking, and then I heard crack, crack. Went to sleep. Morphine. Next thing I know, on a cold, hard x-ray table, the initial shock of morphine is wearing off, and I'm burning, I'm itching, mosquitoes are biting me, the bugs are biting me, my back, my shoulders, my spine are killing me. I'm in a great deal of pain. People around me asking me questions. Who are you? What's your name? What are your children's names? When were you born? And cutting off my uniform. A nurse, she was an Army lieutenant colonel, glasses and I could see gray hair. I don't remember her name. Said, we're going to wash you off with Fisox. This is going to sting. And I remember exclaiming, no shit. They started to cut off my uniform, what was left, and scrubbing me down, my legs, my back, everywhere, with Fisox. In addition, one of the questions right towards the end, they asked me, are you allergic to anything? Now, I'm laying in this gurney at Brooks Army, the burn unit at Burke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. It was the first burn unit in the country. And one of the nurses asked me, are you allergic to anything? I remember thinking in my mind, I'm going to be funny. And I yelled, fire!
That's pretty good. In the moment, that's not a bad little joke.
Yeah, they told me later that it broke the ice. I mean, it made them laugh, relaxed. And then they took me out of there into the ICU. It turned out to be the first bed on the left. It was a 6-bed ICU. They wrapped me like a mummy. My arms, my legs, put a catheter in me. They put what used to be sulfidine, sulfamylon. They use other creams now because technology, fortunately, is advanced like everything, every type of medical, but especially Burke here. And they just lather you up and they wrap you, try to ward off infection because it's not the burns that kill, it's the infections that attack the body. Several of which back then there was no known cure. So I spent 89 days in ICU. I had a double lobar pneumonia, left lung collapsed, skin infections, bloodstream infections, urinary tract infections, mucor in my face, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A part of the story that I didn't know, that nobody knew, was that a rancher found me, accidentally, on fire, right outside the airplane. He's passed now. He passed in 2005. He was 90 years old. His name was John Davio, D-A-V-I-E-A-U. And he managed the 2,000-acre cattle ranch where we crashed called the Mangos Ranch in Shelville. And every Monday morning, 20-plus years, he would jump on his four-wheel drive red pickup truck and go out over undeveloped pasture land, rolling hills, to check the area for dead and stray cattle. He came through the northeast gate, and the weather was so bad, fog, light rain. He cut short his trip and come down through a ravine. He said, Captain Burke, all the years I've been on this ranch, I've never been through that ravine before. And I smelled smoke. I thought to myself, what are the neighbors burning in a day like today? Well, he could have continued down the ravine to the ranch house, but he turned his red four-wheel drive pickup truck 90 degrees to the right, lurched it up over the top of the ravine, saw a tail of an airplane, raced in, jumped out. I don't recall this. Said, I found you on fire, rolling on the ground. You're on fire, and I grabbed dirt and sand, whatever I could, and I put out the fire. You stay where you are, I'm going to go call for help. I still don't remember any of that. And back to the ranch house. Call it Hamilton. You missing an airplane? Yeah, I go on my field. Call Highway Patrol. By the time they get back to the ranch house, from the ranch house to the crash site, the first responders had just arrived there, and shortly thereafter, the helicopter arrived. Mom Davio told me, and I saw them many times over the years, that she heard noise outside the ranch house after John Pop left. And she ran on, she had an apron. When this man opens the door, it was a crew chief. He says, opens up the door, and he lifts up he went like this. I see him lift up his mask, and he's pointing, where? She pointed northeast, up this way, northeast. So I was told later that they auto-rotated and turned. and flew what they call nap of the earth, just in between a hill and a Rhonda Hill. And the investigators found 3.5 miles on into the crash site, parts of airplane. Let down charts, wiring, coffee cups, everything, all into the crash site. And that's how they found the crash site. And the helicopter took me back to Hamilton. And when I got out of the hospital, it's a whole string of events, but I was out of the hospital. I flew from Kansas City to San Francisco in May of 1974. I stopped in Sonoma, I think it was. We pulled into the ranch, and I looked to my right, and I see this man. And someone told me, walk up the berm and see if he knows, or if he knows John Davio. So I walk up the berm. This is late in the afternoon. The sun is setting in the west. It's bright. I'm backlit. I'm about 20 yards from this man leaning in his pickup truck, working on his engine. And I cleared my throat and I said, Mr. Davio. Mr. Davio. Question mark. He picks up. It's a red rag, wipes his hands, puts his glasses on. He squints into the sun. All he sees is a feature. I said, Mr. Davio. Do you know who I am? I'm Captain Burk. He pauses. He races over to me, grabs a hold of me, starts crying. My God, you're alive, you're alive. He starts jumping, I'm down. I start jumping, I'm down in unison. You're alive, you're alive. I never thought I'd see you alive again. Pearl, it's Captain Burk, it's Captain Burk. Pearl and Lori went out of the farmhouse, standing up to this barn, in this berm. There's 4 adults standing there hugging and crying and laughing. Back in the farmhouse, just a lot of hugs and a lot of kisses and a lot of crying. And that's when he told me this story. And I realized then, and there's been many times in life when I think about him and think about them and other people that I get very emotional still, 54 years after the crash. It's crying is a part of healing. Crying for anybody is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. Shows you're human.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. Hey, we're just going to stop here for a quick ad break, but stick around. We'll be right back with more What It Was Like.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
When did you find out that you were the sole survivor of the crash? And how did you feel?
Right after the crash. When I rolled over and I hollered and didn't hear anything, and I saw Pappy, our crew chief, and Bobby Ward, then I knew everybody was dead.
So there was no moment in hospital where the doctors said to you, hey, George, you are officially the only survivor?
No. Nobody ever said anything like that to me. But the one thing that the nurses and the corpsmen always did, there was no enabling. They weren't going to take you upstairs and get in an elbow tank. They weren't going to do this. It's up to you. If you wanted to lay in that hospital bed and die, and I saw it, dying's real easy for a number of reasons. Kids gave up. Their family stopped showing up. They stand at the foot of their bed and cry. Oh, get them the hell out of here. There was no enabling. It was hard. And I often reflected over the years how the doctors and the nurses put up with it, dealt with it, because they saw death and destruction and the smells and the crying and the debridements, the tankings, cutting off human skin, and the post-surgeries. And they were just strong, wonderful, wonderful people. And that's another reason why I'm alive. Most of them didn't let you quit. They were busy. They would stop and spend a few minutes to say hello, how the hell are you? It meant a lot.
Do you recall the first time your family visited, your wife, your kids? How did they respond to your physical state?
Yes, and my daughter to this day, she's 59 years old and remembers the dress she was wearing, and the shoes and the socks. And my two boys were 6, 4, and Kim was 6. Walter was 6, Kim was 4, 4.5, and Scott was 2. And the door to the ICU opens. There's my ex-wife, my wife, and my 3 children. And my oldest boy walked over to me and grabbed me as best he could and hugged me. That's the first time I remember seeing my children. It was the only time they were brought on the ward.
So how long were you in the hospital for?
18 months. 12 and a half months in the burn unit. Yeah.
Jeez. Something I love about your story is it's this story of survival against the odds. It's the story of a miracle in some ways. And I don't know, I've been feeling a little pessimistic about the state of the world at the moment. And I was wondering if you had some kind of message about how it's going to be okay, or how anything's possible. Things can work out.
Yeah. My wife and I talk about this a lot. We're conservative Christians, okay? Her and I have a Bible study every night, and we believe, but all this stuff going on around us, it's just, it really, a lot of respects, it does have an impact on our lives, of course, but there's nothing we can do about it except vote, if you will. It's a show, but we both believe that God's in charge. I believe in heaven. I've seen it. I know it's there. I know we have guardian angels. 2 guys in the airplane come down to the tunnel and told me they were all right. I need to get better. I remember that happening in my mind, my soul. So I'm dealing with health issues now. I said I have been for really elevated probably the last 10 years. I don't walk as fast. I can't walk as far. My breathing is not what it was. But it's a culmination of all my injuries and my burns. And whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Because we can't influence it only by maybe voting and listening to the right type of messages, not to clutter our minds with junk, with lies, depending upon whatever you believe. You have to filter, you have to filter. And then there's a off button on the TV. Turn it off.
Yeah, it's good to remember that.
You got to understand, as I mentioned, I'm 83 years old. I felt that way all my life. Since I was injured. I was full of piss and vinegar, and I wanted to not set the world on fire, no pun intended, but I wanted to do something with my life because so many people worked so tirelessly to give my life back to me. I did not want to disappoint them. And I disappointed them. I was going to disappoint myself. And I didn't want that to happen. Because I know about self-imposed survivor guilt. Didn't know what it was, but I know what I felt. So you find a purpose. You find a reason for being, and you try to accomplish that as best you possibly can with the tools that you're given, the life that you've been given, because the ultimate, they're all going to pass. And when I die this time, those that show up at my funeral at the Arizona Veterans Memorial Burial Site, cemetery, I don't talk to my wife about this much, but I hope that they will say, he was a pretty good guy. We like him. We respected him. He was a good man, good husband, good father. And he did something with his life. And that's what I tried to do.
Yeah.
So
it seems to me that you're saying, hey, if there's a sort of a messy world out there of variables and things that you can't control, traumas and pain, just focus on what you can do.
Yeah. You ever see Desert Quail and 5 or 6 babies behind their mother and daddy? We have hummingbirds show up. Look at them.
Yeah.
Look at them. You ever walk out in the backyard and walk over to the corner and get a pick off an orange from an orange tree? Bring it and skin it, eat it? All of a sudden, all this other exterior stuff doesn't mean anything. The beauty is all around us. The people you love, next time you see people that love you, walk up and say, you know something? I don't know the last time I hugged you, because I'm going to give you a hug. Why? Because I want to. Because I can. That's what you do.
George, I think that's such a good message. That's an important message. And I think, it's helped. I think you've genuinely soothed me. So thank you. Thanks for coming on the show today, and thank you for talking with me.
I believe it wasn't an accident. I believe that you were supposed to find me. God bless you.
Hey, I just wanted to finish with a little epilogue here. So like I said at the top, it's been a week of big news, and it feels like there's a lot to worry about in the world. And George's advice was to just focus on the things that we can control, but also to appreciate the little crumbs of beauty in the world. So yesterday, after talking to George, I put on a big jacket because I'm in Melbourne, this is the southern hemisphere, and we're in winter. It's freezing. So I put on a big jacket and I went out and I came to an intersection and, it's kind of raining. It's not that pretty. And there was this bank of cars and they were all waiting to turn left and their indicator lights were flashing. And from my position, I saw this row of lights and they're all flashing at different speeds, all right? Some are going slow. They're not aligned at all. But then slowly and magically, the flashing lights started to synchronize. And then suddenly I was looking at this harmony of indicator lights. And it was like flash, flash, flash. And it didn't last long. But for a moment, it felt like just like a little wink. Like on this rainy day, it was like this little glance across a crowded room. And the universe said to me, hey, it's me. How you doing? All right, good. Gotta go. See you. Bye. And I was like, oh, hey, that was nice. It's, I'm not religious. George was talking a lot about God. I'm not saying it was like a little wink from God. I'm just saying that somehow it just felt like there was this little gift of order. It just came together and just made sense for a brief moment. So yeah, that was my little taste of finding beauty in the world. And it was thanks to George. So do with that what you will. You can find George's book on his crash experience on Amazon. He recounts the whole thing in finer detail than we had time for today. The book is called The Bridge Never Crossed, A Survivor's Search for Meaning. Thanks for listening. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple and on Spotify. And we'd also love it if you'd follow the show. And did you know we're on TikTok? Yes, we are. We're on TikTok and we're on YouTube. We are at What It Was Like Podcast. That's at symbol What It Was Like Podcast. Today's episode was produced by Rachel Tuffery. It was mixed by Jimmy Saunders, who also did our theme music. Evie Atkins is our intern. Our cover art is by Naomi Lee Beveridge. And this whole thing has been a super real production.